the general public first became aware of the threat to AI, threat to their jobs through AI, I would maintain, in July 2023, when the screenwriters and actors of Hollywood went on strike to protest against the potential threat to their jobs. To be clear, it's not AI that is a threat to their jobs. Rather, it is the people who are using AI who might wish to displace those individuals. Elsewhere in Los Angeles, there was an example of a copywriter who was sacked by a startup because they discovered that the job of the copywriter could be done much more quickly, much better, and of course, much more cheaply by ChatGPT. So they sacked the copywriter. But it wasn't AI that sacked the copywriter, it was the CEO of the company. So the problem is really that unscrupulous individuals who wish to make a profit may well displace human beings because AI will be much cheaper. Arguably, architects started to become aware of this shortly afterwards. This is an article from August 2023, where Oliver Wainwright in the Guardian at least puts in the title, asks in the title, will AI wipe out architects? I would claim that architects have yet to take this threat seriously, but nonetheless, at least it is being raised at this stage. The problem is, in my mind, that there have been three fundamental misconceptions that have given individuals a false sense of security about the future. The first fundamental misconception has been this perception that somehow it will be the blue-collar workers who will be laid off first. We're all used to these images of a Tesla factory where there are almost no human beings in sight. And we have the assumption that the robotic arms could very easily displace all manual workers. But in fact, robotic arms have struggled to do certain fairly straightforward tasks. Put a pile of random Lego bricks on a table and ask a robotic arm to sort them out and to stack them neatly into a wall, and you'll discover that robotic arms will struggle to do this. It's still quite challenging to achieve the kind of motility that an ordinary child has. And yet AI has been racing ahead. It's therefore become clear that it's not the blue-collar workers, but the white-collar workers who are a threat from AI. Moreover, AI has proved itself capable of a number of things. It is quite capable of translating, it's quite capable of writing, it's quite capable of writing code, and it's quite capable of designing. I have a friend from college who owned the largest translation company in Europe, and he decided to sell up because he could see the writing on the wall, just as indeed the Hollywood scriptwriters and actors could too. When will architects wake up to this? I often say to my students, well, if there's a problem in architecture, or at least I have said in the past, if there's a problem in architecture, then you could always escape into the world of computer science because that will be a safe place, a safe haven. But even computer scientists are discovering that they're not safe because AI can write pretty good code and it's only going to get better over time. In other words, it's not the blue-collar workers, it's the white-collar workers, the engineers, the architects, the doctors, the lawyers, and indeed the computer scientists whose jobs are most at risk. The second misconception stems from this study that was done in 2013 by two researchers at the University of Oxford, Carl Benedict Fry and Michael Osborne. This was a study that went through each of the professions to see which one was most at risk from the threat of AI. And as you can see, there were some 700 or so, of which some were more likely to disappear than others. Architects are ranked fairly lowly down the list. In other words, they are not so much at risk. At least that has been the perception so far. Architects are ranked 82nd, architectural and engineering managers at 78. And then when we find ourselves at the bottom of the list, telemarketeers they're the ones ultimately who will be most at risk. Now, my point is this. The mistake that has been made in this particular survey has been to assume that it is a one-for-one question of replacement of human beings by AI. But that's not the way that it works. In effect, AI has become a prosthesis to the human imagination. In other words, it's not a question so much of humans versus AI, but a human using AI versus a human not using AI. And the expression is often given these days that those who don't use AI will be replaced by those who do. But the point is this: someone using AI can achieve substantially more than someone not using AI. In fact, the calculation was once made that one person using AI could achieve as much as 5 people not using AI. It's difficult to come up with an overall figure because there are different tasks involved in architectural design, and it's also a question of when. When exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about now, next year, or in 10 years' time? But suffice it to say, that is the calculation that must be made, not humans versus AI, but someone using AI versus someone not using AI. The third miscalculation that has been made has been the assumption that somehow, well, never mind, AI will come along and we'll find other forms of employment. We'll be working elsewhere. We'll find plenty of things to occupy ourselves with. There's no concern. Certainly, this is the approach that most people take in architecture. I recently wrote an article for Debunking challenging this and saying that AI is putting our jobs as architects unquestionably at risk. The response was quite interesting. There were 2 types of response: those who worked in the world of AI who said, of course, we knew this, there's nothing new here. And then those who knew little about AI who said, that dismissed AI and claimed that it couldn't possibly do what they could do. One particularly pompous comment was, there's not a single AI in the market that could possibly match my ingenuity and creativity. Well, whoever wrote that will probably be the first to go. The problem is this, and it's a straightforward economic one. Economics will be the main driver of change, as the Suskins have argued. And what I think will happen is that as things get tighter and tighter, but at the same time, as people are able to do more and more with AI, they will realize they could start outbidding one another in terms of their fees. If you can achieve as much with AI, much more than you can without AI, then you don't need to be paid so much. You can do it much more cheaply. So there will be a bidding war, in a sense, much like there is in China. In other words, instead of getting a fees in of, say, 5% of the building cost, maybe the fees will go down to 1% or 2%, as they are in China. And once they're down at that level, they're never going to come back. And that possibly is the reason why in China itself there is a crisis in architecture. It is such a badly paid job. But my point will be this. There is only a finite amount of money coming into architecture, and it is based on a percentage of the building costs. And the buildings are not going to get more numerous. If anything, they might get less. So if you take that percentage, and if you reduce that percentage from, say, 5% down to 2% or 1%, then there is a fundamentally smaller sum of money coming into the profession. So it's all very well to say, well, architects can do other things, but who is going to pay them and for what? Perhaps, of course, there'll be money coming in from the metaverse. I don't know. But AI should soon be very good at generating image designs for the metaverse as well. And we can't bank on that. The main stable income for architects then is generated through the construction of the building itself as a percentage of the building costs. And that, I believe, will be under threat. Now, there is one group of people who I think will be unaffected by that, and that is the architects. architects such as Zahidid architects operate according to a fundamentally different logic. It's a bit like the logic of branding. After all, if you own a Prada bag, or if you buy a Prada bag or a Gucci bag or something, you don't buy it to save money. You buy it for precisely the opposite reason. You buy it to show that you don't care about money. It is a form of conspicuous consumption. I therefore believe that for architects, there will still be a market, and a market that will be sustained by those who are not concerned about the price of the architect. But for every other architect, there is a risk of something else.